All right, so standing at the top of the mat when you're ready, we're gonna have a little look at the feet here. So just having the feet hip width apart, and then based on what we've done over the last 2 weeks, you can either have your toes turned in slightly, heels out, based on which pelvic tilt you've got, or you have the feet turned out slightly, so heels in a little more. Then if you can, try and spread your toes or lift the toes first, then try and spread them. Sometimes you have to do fingers at the same time, and then place them back down. All right, so it just feels like you're really flat in the feet, but we're trying to get down into each sort of, imagine there's 4 corners of the foot, so the front 2 and then the back 2 sort of either side of the heel. And then start to pull up through the kneecaps so we're nice and strong in the thighs, maybe checking in that the knees are facing forwards, and then nice and strong in the glutes as well. And just for now, we just focus on that area just to keep nice and strong. Maybe close the eyes. So although this sometimes makes us feel a little off balance, it'll just help us bring a little more awareness to the feet, the toes, the ankles, the knees, the legs. And just keeping that engagement in the glutes. And then just nice and slowly starting to build that breath. So you're taking some deeper inhales, longer exhales. And if you have got the eyes closed, just notice if you're kind of swaying, whether you're swaying forwards and back, maybe side to side. And just see if there's anything you can do with the feet, the toes, to try and help you minimize that swaying. And it does make it harder when we close the eyes, but it's a really good exercise to try and help. It's well balanced as well. Now we'll just try and get another couple of breaths in. And then we'll make a move with our sun salutations. One more. Excellent, well done. All right, we'll dive in with our sun salutations. Again, having a little more focus on the feet, so keep making sure the toes are still spread nice and wide. When you're ready, inhale, reaching hands all the way up towards the sky, either palms together or open the chest, hands a little wider. Exhale, fold towards the floor, drop the head, maybe soften the knees for the first one, belly in. Inhale, halfway lift, look forwards. And exhale, plant the hands and step the feet all the way back to front. Nice and strong, straighten the legs, and then shift forwards, lower down. Good, feet nice and wide, fire up the glutes, and knees lift, pressing to the tops of the feet, and then inhale for your upward facing dog, your version. Exhale, release, tuck the toes, downward facing dog. Well done. So we'll just get our 5 breaths here. Feel free to move out through the body however you need, so handing out the legs or taking the hips from side to side, just generally stretching out around the arms, the back and side of the body, and getting into those legs as well. Well then, nice deep breaths. Then 3, 4, and 5. Well done. Looking forward, step the feet towards the front. Again, just spread the toes, plant down, 4 corners of each foot, and coming into your halfway lift. Exhale, fold down, belly in. Inhale, reaching the hands all the way back up. Squeeze the glutes at the top, lift the chest, and exhale all the way back to standing. Lovely. Another 2 to go. Nice big inhale, reaching up, lift the chest. Exhale, fold towards the floor. Checking in with the feet, spread the toes. Inhale, halfway lift, look forwards. And exhale, plant the hands, feet all the way back. Nice strong plank. Shift forward, slow down. Always use the knees, elbows in. Feet nice and wide, lift the knees, press into the tops of the feet, lift the chest. Exhale, release, downward facing dog. Well done. So starting to feel like you're warming up a little now, getting that breath nice and strong. Well done. Now we're just going to try and stretch out into the legs a little bit more. So bend the knees and then take the hips as far back as you can. To the point where you feel your arms stretching, your shoulders working strong. And now try to press the heels down slightly. So you get that stretch into the back of the legs. Notice as well, if you drop in your weight out to the outside edges of the feet or more to the inside, and try and level that up if you can. Check in which direction the knees are going as well. Again, try and adjust. And as the heels go down, so you get that stretch into the calves, hamstrings, just also start to press the hips further back. And imagine the heels go back, calves go back, and then the front of the thighs lift and go back as well. So quite a lot of engagement into the legs. Hold on, hold it here. 3, belly pulls in. 4. And 5. Well done. Look forward, stack the feet, or jump. Again, spread the toes. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, folding down. Try and get straight legs for this fold. Belly in. Inhale, coming all the way back up. We're reaching up, open out, and exhale all the way back. Lovely. Last one to go. We're going to try and mix it up a little with our down dog. So inhale, lift the chest, open up, and exhale, folding down. Again, checking in with the feet, lean slightly forwards in towards the front of the feet. Inhale, halfway lift, look forwards. And exhale, plant the hands, feet all the way back to plank. Lovely. Shift forwards, lower down, elbows in. Good. Feet nice and wide, shoulders down the back, lift the chest. Good. Exhale, downward facing dog. Well done. All right, from here, we're going to start to stretch out a little bit more. So take your feet together, and don't worry if the heels don't go down, just going to be onto the toes. Spread the toes as well. And then take your right leg up towards the sky. So we can try and keep the hips level, makes it a little harder to reach up, but basically your right knee will be facing towards the floor. It won't be rolling out to the side. We're actually going to pull that right hip down slightly. So just starting to open out the hip flexor a little. Well done. One more breath this side. Strong in the arms. Good. Exhale, release. Switching over, left side. Again, opening out across the hip flexor. But try and pull that left outside edge of the hip towards the floor. So foot goes high, but we're trying to keep the hips nice and level, nice and square. Well done. Straight legs. One more breath. Lovely, well done. Release that leg down. Just press back. You can still do this with the feet together. Spread the toes. Well done. And then coming forwards when you're ready. Spread the toes at the top, halfway lift. Exhale, fold down. Inhale, coming all the way back up. Opening out, lift the chest. And exhale all the way back to the Lovely. We're going to dive into our triangle pose. So this is going to help to start opening out the hips as well. If you can, go a little bit wider than usual, right foot towards the back of the mat. And then when you're ready, start to come down towards the ankle, the shin, maybe towards the toe. Make sure this back hip doesn't roll forward. So it's quite easy to roll forward. Try and pull it back as much as you can. So you get that deeper stretch, but we also open it up across the hip flexors. Start to take the head up, gaze up, maybe hand up, or over, just wherever you're at. Well done, nice and strong in the legs, straight in the legs. We want to really stretch the hamstrings by engaging the thighs. Lovely, 2, 3, can we start to go a little lower? Keep pressing into the outside edge of that back foot. 4, and 5. Well done. Bend the right knee. You're going to sink down here and drop the elbow down for our side lunge. So hopefully nice and wide with the legs. Knee goes over the ankle. Spread the toes again a little harder, and then tuck under with the tailbone a little as well. Well done. So the aim for this one is to just lower the hips down if you can. So don't worry about the arms too much. Keep the chest lifted. Just going as low as you can, but we also want to feel a little bit of strength. So for the last 2 breaths, just try and squeeze the heels towards each other. You feel that strength down the inside of the thighs. Well done. One more breath. Good. Well done. Excellent. Push into the front knee, coming up. I'm going to do triangle rows on the other side. I'm trying to fly through these sort of prep ones just so we've got enough time to do the others. So again, both legs nice and straight, nice and strong. Leaning forwards towards your left leg, shin, ankle, toe. And again, press down into the outside edge of that back foot. Again, think about the outside edge of your right hip trying to work towards the ceiling. So if it's rolling forwards, try and roll it back if you can. Well done. Nice deep breaths. 2. Yeah, can always take top arm up or over to get a deeper stretch. Good. 3. Strong legs. 4. And 5. Well done, and release the arm. Push into the front knee. Drop the elbow down and then sink nice and low. So really drop those hips down now. Just starting to open out. Well done. Strong in the foot so you can spread the toes. Good. 1. Open the chest a little. Lovely. 2. Sinking down a little lower with the exhale. Good. 3. Just feel that strength. So squeeze the heels. 4. Keep squeezing them towards each other. Last one. And 5. Lovely. Push into the front knee. Coming all the way back up. Well done. Take a nice big step forward and shake it out. Lovely. All right. So next one we're going to try and do is our wide-legged forward fold. I'll try and give you a few tips to work towards this. And then we'll try and open out a couple of exercises to help work towards box splits. So that's when you do them out to the side if that's what you want to work on. So feet nice and wide. Feet can be parallel or toes turned out slightly to help with the hips. And then when you're ready, just soften the knees, take the hands towards the floor or fingertips. Lean slightly forward, so you're more into the front of the feet, and that'll just allow us to stack our hips over our ankles rather than them going backwards. Now try to straighten the legs, so engage the thighs, press down into the outside edges of the feet. Well done, and then see if you can squeeze your outer hips towards each other. Sometimes this makes us engage inside a little, and we end up sort of rounding the back a little bit more, but just give it a little go. Well done. So you feel a little bit more strength on this one. Don't worry, we will still stretch, but just going to start to feel that strength. Well done. We just want to try and get a nice balance between strength and flexibility. Lovely. One more breath. Lower the head down, but still keep forward slightly. Keep the legs strong. One more breath. Excellent, well done. Nice big inhale, lift, look forwards. And then just turn your toes out so they're more like a 45-degree angle. Feels a little weird when you've got the legs straight, but don't worry, we're going to move over. So with the hands on the floor or fingertips on the floor, you're going to bend your left knee and start to walk your hands over towards that left leg. As you do, we're trying to keep the right outside edge of the foot down on the floor. So this is where we start to work into the hips a little more. So just go to where you can, keep nice and low. You're going to feel a little bit like Spider-Man as we just lean over to the left. Well done, take a breath. Good work. Nice and slowly, keeping really low still. Almost like you're trying to keep your back low to the ground. Start to move your hands over across towards the right foot. And again, sink down nice and low, bending that right knee, so shifting across. Left foot still trying to come down. And that's where we work a little more with our flexibility into the ankles. Don't worry if the foot does lift, that's fine. Well done, but just feeling that stretch down the inside of the left thigh. Good. Well done. Nice and slowly start to switch over. So you're going to move back over to the left. We're going to try a slightly different one now. So as we go over to the left, you're going to start to pick up the front of the right foot slightly. Basically, so the right toes go up towards the ceiling. You end up dropping back down with the tailbone. So you end up in sort of a little bit of a squat on the left side, and your right knee faces up towards the ceiling. And that will, this is a good one to help you get towards box splits. Really good stretch out, especially if you do a lot of climbing. You can do this one before or after. Sometimes you need to warm up to get to this point though. And then when you're ready, we'll switch over, go to the other side. So again, nice and slowly, just walking the hands across. And again, moving over to the right. Maybe dropping that tailbone down. A little bit of balance involved to hold it here. Maybe feel the left toes up towards the ceiling, left knee up. Sometimes you can come to center and have hands to heart center, or you might still need the hands down. One more breath. Excellent, well done. Nice and slowly, just bring the hands back down, going back to the center when you're ready. If you want to, from here, you can take your feet a little bit wider. Hopefully not got too much of a slippy mat. You don't want to go too far with it. Just go wider than you usually do, and you should feel a little more warmed up after those exercises. And then you're just going to start to try to fold down. You might get the elbows down, but just work to where you're at. So hopefully a little lower than usual. Pressing down into the outside edges of the feet and just feeling that stretch down the inside of the legs. So if you've got tight hamstrings, it's harder to straighten the legs, but the more you can work towards that, the more you can properly stretch the hamstrings. So it's better to be higher up with straight legs than it is to go lower with bent knees. If you can work on that, then the flexibility will start to come afterwards, so that's fine. Well done. One more breath. Good work. All right, so this exercise in particular is a good one to work towards box splits because you end up using your weight of your upper body to sink into it. So you might get onto your elbows and then you start to slowly slide the feet out. Don't worry, we're not going to go all the way through for that, but it's definitely a good one to get to. But you do need to make sure you look after your lower back. So nice and slowly, just shuffle the feet in until you feel balanced, and then we'll come up on the inhale. Woo! I'll hopefully feeling that. And now we're going to have a little go at trying to open the hip flexors to go the other way, and we'll have a little working towards splits front ways. So top of the mat when you're ready. Hopefully start to feel those hip flexors opening up. Nice big inhale, reaching the hands up, squeeze the glutes, lift the chest, and exhale, folding down. As you fold, check in with the feet, spread the toes, strong legs. Inhale, halfway down. And exhale, plant the hands, feet back to plank. Well done, shift forwards, lower down. Feet nice and wide, knees lift as you engage the thighs, and then lift the chest for your upward facing dog. Good, exhale, downward facing dog. Well done. All right, so we'll try and work towards splits this way now. So starting with your right leg, take your feet together and then lift your right leg up towards the sky, just like we did earlier. But this time we're going to open it out. So turn the outside edge of your right foot towards the ceiling. So you get to open out and you really open across the pelvis here as well. Take the foot up as high as you can. Keep the leg nice and straight. Well done. 2, 3, good. 4, and 5. Well done. Bring the knee in towards the chest and then step the right foot forwards. Okay, so sometimes we do this and we do warrior, but we're going to skip the warrior bit for today. If you can, just try and take your left heel back slightly or your left foot back. It depends how slippy your mat is. And you should feel that stretch across the top of the left hip flexor, so right at the top of the left thigh. Press down into the right foot and keep trying to send your left heel away. The lower you can go in this one, the better. You know, just feel that stretch. Well done. One more breath. Excellent. Well done. Nice and slowly drop the left knee down towards the floor. We're going to keep the back toes tucked under, and this is where I'm going to start to work towards splits on the front leg. So just to start with, shuffle your right foot forwards a little, just a couple of inches. And then with your left sit bone or your left hips just starting to dip down, I'm going to show you a little trick that you can do. So some of these postures, things like splits, can be a little bit scary. And when we work towards them, sometimes we kind of panic and we might go too far with our flexibility, and then we feel pain the next day or inflammation, and it puts you off doing it again. So a little trick is to keep the strength with it as well. So we're going to inhale, and as we inhale, we're going to squeeze the front heel towards the back knee. So inhale, squeeze. You feel like you're going against the grain of what you're trying to achieve. And then with the exhale, just completely release that pulling in. And you should feel a little softness and a little more relaxed into the hips as you drop down. We'll try 2 more. So inhale, squeeze front heel to the back knee. Exhale, release. Well done. 1 more, nice big inhale, squeeze. Exhale, release. Good work, well done. So you can use that method, that squeeze and release. It's really good to help you get into more challenging postures. Okay, to go a little further or onto the next one, if you start to push your hips back, we can take that pressure off the left hip flexor and instead try to work to strengthen this right leg, which again, when we work towards things like splits, we need to have a front straight leg and eventually a straight back leg. So again, depending on whether you've got tight hamstrings, this might be a challenge to keep the legs straight and strong. If you want to, you can slide the foot forwards or shuffle it forward, see how it feels. And again, depends if you've got a slippy mat as well. And then what you will find is your left hip wants to go away from you. So pull your left hip forwards and your right hip back. Well done. You can spread the toes. So you might just be on the heel on your front foot. And then to gain flexibility, we're going to try to fold towards that right leg. So it's quite a deep stretch for the back of the leg, but still try and have that right hip pull back and the left hip pull forwards. Well done. That just allows us to keep the hips level. Because once you start to go further with this, we end up, the hips kind of twist a little bit. Makes it look like we're doing splits, but we've kind of got a lot of twisting going on in the pelvis and maybe the knees, so we want to avoid that. All right, 2 more breaths. Well done, 1 more. Good work, well done. Nice and slowly, soften the front knee. Well done, tuck under with the toes on the back foot, lift the back knee. Well done, we might shuffle that front foot, that back foot in slightly, take your hands further forwards, and then see if you can scoop that right foot back. Well done, shift forwards, lower down. Let's stretch out. So feet are nice and wide, lift the knees. Inhale for your upward facing dog, stretch into the chest. Exhale, release, tuck the toes, downward facing dog. Lovely, get a nice stretch out. Excellent, let's switch over to do the other side. So feet together, left foot lifts up nice and high in your down dog, and then take it nice and wide. So turn the outside edge of the left foot towards the ceiling. Open out across the hip. Well done. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Well done. Pull the left knee in nice and close, and then step in that left foot forwards. Well done. Don't worry if it doesn't go too far forwards. We're going to push that heel back. So you might slide your right heel back slightly, and then let the hips drop down. Keep the back toes tucked under. So we're going to stay here in a low plank and stretch that hip flexor. So just allow this right hip to lower towards the floor, keeping that strength, flexibility, but just try and use the breath to soften the breath. And 2 more. Good, 1 more. Well done. Dropping the back knee towards the floor. Keep the back toes tucked under for engagement. And then we're slowly going to shuffle that left foot forward, so try and go a bit lower. We tend to lean forwards rather than sitting upright because we can keep an eye on the lower back and make sure we're not sinking into the lower back or crunching into the lower back. And then slowly just, again, letting that right hip flexor sink down. Well done. We're going to use that squeeze method, squeeze and release. So pull your front heel towards your back knee. Squeeze it in with your inhale. Exhale, release. Well done. 3 more. Nice big inhale. Squeeze. You should feel like you're lifting up slightly as you squeeze. And as you exhale, release, sink down. Well done. 2 more. Inhale, squeeze. Exhale, release. Lovely. One more. Nice big inhale, squeeze. Exhale. Release. Well done. Hopefully feeling a little bit lower there. You can have a go at trying to push your foot slightly forwards. And in an ideal world, you'll have about 2 hours to do this. And you should get quite far with it. But you can work on it every day and do some of these postures sort of, 15 to 20 minutes a day. And you'll soon start to open out a little bit more. But really use the breath because it does make a massive difference. And so we're trying to move forward slightly. All right, let's go the other way now. So you can walk your hands back slightly. Start to lift the hips and then send the hips back so you can straighten your front leg. Okay, left hip's going to want to come forward. So pull your left hip back, right hip forwards. Make sure your ankle is nice and strong. So try and get your left leg nice and straight. And then maybe folding down to deepen that stretch on the back of the leg. So hamstring, calf stretch. Well done, deep breaths. Use the exhale to maybe release a little. Still try and keep the legs straight. So this is where you can get injuries if you release too much. So it's all right to release into the hips, but when you're trying to stretch the back of the leg here, we still want to keep the strength if we can. So straight leg. Exhale to help you go a little further with the fold. Lovely. 2 more. Yeah, 1 more. Excellent, good work, well done. Bend the front knee. This is where we might pick up the back knee. Might have to scoop that front foot all the way back. Taking our mat with us as well, maybe. And then coming forward and down. Feet wide, lift the knees for your upward facing dog. And exhale, release, tuck the toes, downward facing dog. Lovely, well done. All right, so we'll just come through to seated. Hopefully feeling a little more open there. But this sort of, if you think about it, there's 2 different ways to try and stretch in your splits. So one is having the front legs straight, so you can try and work that way. But the other way is like the first option, where we're trying to open up the hip flexor with the foot that's going back. And depending on which way your pelvis tilts, you'll find it's easier to do one way than the other. So you might want to work more on that way. And then you might find it's the front straight leg that's the harder one to work on, but that will come eventually. Okay, we're now going to have a look at doing box splits, so the other way. I think it's box splits, it's what they used to call it in gymnastics, I'm sure. So sitting up nice and tall. I think it's monkey pose in yoga, they call it. No, that's the front splits. Pañamanasana is monkey splits in yoga, which is that way. So for this one, because normally in yoga, we don't really try and take the feet much wider, and we just try to build strength. So one is to try and get the legs straight, so we keep the strength, and that's stretching the hamstrings as well. So we'll just spend a little time to keep the strength. So when you've got the feet down, try and keep the heels on the ground, so protect the back of the knee. Try and spread the calves, so spread the calves on the ground. And then same with the hamstrings. So you're trying to press the back of the thighs, the hamstrings towards the ground. So if you've got tight buns, that's going to be a lot harder to do, but keep trying to press down if you can. You also might tilt in the pelvis. You might tilt back slightly, which we tend to do when we open the hips. So you can do this against the wall. So lean against the wall to try and keep your back really straight, and then try sit up and you'll feel it in the hip flexors there. Otherwise, just use your hands if you've not got a wall and just try to lift the chest to sit up a little taller, but still keeping the legs down and strong. Okay, there's a lot with this one. Then the other one is to check in that your knees, where your knees are. So for some of us, the knees might roll out, feet might roll out as well. Or when we start to come forwards, you often see the knees roll in and we lose some of that strength then. So key is that when we've got the strength, we're still trying to keep the knees going up. So that's first element, hopefully feeling that. And then second one is then to try to go a little bit further and a little bit wider. So 2 ways of doing that. One is to try and improve the flexibility by coming further forwards, which we often do in yoga, Ashtanga. We might take that outside of the feet, or you might grab the shins, the ankles, and then try to pull the chest forwards. That's going to help to increase the flexibility into the hip flexors. So we'll just do a couple of breaths here. Lifting the chest. So try and find length in the back. Exhale, bring the chest further forwards. Maybe walk the hands further forwards as well. Well done. 2 more. Good work. 1 more. Excellent. Well done. And then just exhale, release, coming back up, and then just have a little shake out. Those hip flexors release. Okay, so then to go wider still, and you can do this against the wall once you've warmed up, but you might want to face the wall the other way and basically, or you get somebody to help you, maybe kids might help, but basically if they're facing you, they press their feet into your ankles or your calves, your shins, your calves, just make sure they avoid the knees. And then basically they can try and help you push your legs a little bit wider, but obviously you need to talk to them and you need to try and keep the strength. So as we try and go wider, knees start to lift and then we start to lose that. So try to really keep the strength as they're trying to push your feet over, open, and then you can obviously swap over and do the same. But you can start to do it against the wall, but you almost need somebody to help push you in. It's a little more intense. So we'll just try to do it on our own. Basically, we're going to try to take the feet a bit wider. So just use your hands or fists on the floor to lift up, keep the strength in the legs, and then slide your hips further forwards. And ideally need a bit of room for this as well. You can also practice this with fluffy socks on a sort of laminate floor, and that'll help you move a little bit more. So hands down or fists down behind the hips, try and slide forwards, keep the strength. And then just keep going as far as you can. But again, slowly with the breath, just so we can keep working like that. Let's try and do 1 more if we can. So inhale, lift up, keep the strength. Exhale, going further forwards. Well done. And when you're starting to do this, if you can try staying seated, the wider you go the legs, obviously the harder it is then to fold forwards. So one, you might work with narrower legs and just try and fold. And then for your second option, try to keep seated. Use your hands down to help. But that just means that we can keep the knees upright and we can keep strong in the legs. So that's our box splits. Well done. Hopefully feeling that. So carefully, you can start to bring yourself back a little bit more. Use your hands, and then once they're in a little bit closer, grab the thighs, cross the feet, and we'll do a vinyasa just to stretch out. And then we're nearly coming to up to time on this session, but I'm going to give you a little bit of a relaxing hip opener, which is specifically targeted for helping to get you towards splits or monkey pose. So that's front splits. So get a good stretch out in your down dog. We're just going to try to stretch out the thighs a little, because sometimes you can feel that as well. So if you go onto your knees, if you're all right with the knees, obviously, but don't do it if it's not comfortable. And then you want to be sitting on your heels. You might have your knees, your feet a little bit open, but otherwise relatively close. And then you're going to lean back slightly, try and get your hands on the floor, or fists if you prefer. And then we're not trying to necessarily lift the chest and look up. We're actually trying to get a stretch into the thighs and the hip flexors. So for this, you're going to tuck your tailbone, and as you tuck the tailbone, start to lift the hips up. And you can try and squeeze the glutes as well, and you should feel that really strong stretch from the knees up to the hip flexors. Obviously take it down a notch if it's too intense, but tucking it under with the tailbone should help you to stretch those thighs. And again, it's quite a nice one. Sometimes you can do this as like a runner's stretch. You can do it standing. Yeah, it's a bit more intense on the floor. Well done. Let's do 2 more breaths. Good, one more. Excellent, well done. And then just lowering it all the way down, nice and slowly. Well done, we'll just release them through to seated. And then this last one I'm going to show you, which is a little bit more relaxing. It'll sort of be our Shavasana as well. You can always do your Shavasana after if you've got time. Ideally, you need a block, or people use like a yoga bolster, or you can get a couple of cushions. But you want to have a bit of height really if you can. So I'm using these brick blocks because they've got a little bit more height. So basically you're going to come onto your back, have your block or your cushions to hand, and then you're going to try and slide your block underneath your buttock. But you can always use two if you want to, but underneath your buttock or your cushion. So it's right on the sacrum area, so your lower part of your spine. Well done. Then bring your left knee in towards you, and you can hug it in a little here. Then slowly let your right leg go out. So right leg out and away from you, like you're trying to straighten your leg, and start to feel like that right leg is lowering towards the floor. And obviously, depending on how high you are, that right leg, that right heel might not ever touch the floor. If it does touch the floor and you're not feeling that stretch across the top of the right hip flexor, you might need more blocks, or you might need to go higher. But you can stay in this for sort of, well, as long as you want to, and it's a little more relaxing. You don't really have to have any engagement. So they're a lot more relaxing than a lot of the postures we've done today. And it could be just something you build into your day, your daily routine. Maybe you do this before you go to bed. Just helps to stretch out, maybe first thing in the morning. And that should help you to open out the hip flexors, especially if you do a lot of running, biking, climbing, where you've got the knees bent and they're coming up towards the chest in particular. And then this is going to help you to stretch out and just even out that balance and help you work towards splits. So hopefully you're feeling that. You can also straighten your left leg and pull it in, and that will also take the right leg a bit higher. It's not as relaxing. Well done, we'll just do a couple more on this side. And you'll find the longer you stay in it, you can kind of build up minutes in it basically, that you might need to actually start quite high because that heel starts to touch the floor. All right, let's try switch over. So just let the left knee come back in, then slowly release your left foot to the floor as you pull your right knee towards the chest. Well done. And then nice and slowly, just take your left leg a little higher, straighten the leg, and slowly start to let it lower towards the floor. And again, ideally, it's not touching the floor. If you're doing this properly, it feels like you've taken your foot through the floor because you feel like you should be touching the floor, but you're not touching the floor. But again, it's just quite a nice hip flexor stretch. And then just breathe through it. Try and do about 5 breaths on this side. And then maybe trying to stretch, straighten the right leg up. Just have a little go, see how that feels. Trying to pull the right leg in towards you. Again, that will take the left leg higher. But again, you're just trying to use gravity to help it go down. Just making sure the left leg stays straight. Excellent, well done. And then just nice and slowly release your right leg. Take that down on the floor, bend your left knee, and then just come into almost a bridge pose and lift the hips, slide the block out. And then good work. Then just take your feet a little bit wider. Just relax the feet out to the side, palms facing upwards. And then just tucking the chin, closing the eyes. And I'll just try and relax the breath, allow it to return to its natural rhythm. We'll just try to relax the whole body. Just noticing what parts of the body have got contact with the ground, Just allowing them to feel heavier and heavier. Sinking down deeper and deeper into the earth. And then as the body starts to be a little more still, a little more relaxed, as the breath starts to return to its natural rhythm, just take a moment or two to just check in with the body, maybe starting at the toes, scanning it up. So just a little sort of meditation exercise, but just scanning up from the toes to the top of the head. Maybe with a little more focus on the lower part of the body, and just notice how you feel now. So maybe you can feel that the hip flexors are a little more open, a little more stretched. You might notice how the thighs feel, the calves, the hamstrings. Maybe feeling it into the outer hips, maybe towards the sit bones. And then with the eyes still closed, just slowly start to bend your knees, take your feet flat on the floor. And then just slowly rolling over to the right. Use your right arm to support your head. And then nice and slowly, just coming back to seated. Back, well done. Namaste.